Good day and welcome to Conversations with AARP in the Virgin Islands. I'm Troy Deshabere Schuster, State Director of AARP in this territory. Today, the use of cyber technology is common practice in our daily lives, and with the onset of the COVID 19 pandemic, time spent online has increased significantly. Persons are accessing social media platforms, streaming movies and television, and communicating through cell phones and other digital mediums for work, entertainment, and education. While there are benefits to the cyber world, it also exposes us to the risks of abuse and exploitation by predators. According to a report by the United States Department of Homeland Security, online risks either involve online relationships, behaviors, accessing risky content, or being victims of cyber scams. The large scale study also showed that vulnerable populations are more likely to be victimized by online predators. As defined, vulnerable online communities include the elderly, children, women, and those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Interestingly, while young people are the most competent, they are the most vulnerable of these users to be targeted. Recognizing the impact of online abuse on our children, AARP Virgin Islands and the Virgin Islands Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs have teamed up to bring you a special edition of In Conversation with AARP, Cyber Safety for Young People. This is the Back to School edition. Today's discussion will help to raise awareness on the importance of navigating the cyber world safely and equipping parents with the tools and resources to help protect their children from cyber abuse. And so today I'm joined by attorney Richard Evangelista, who is the commissioner of the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs in the Virgin Islands. Welcome, attorney Evangelista.
Good day. Once again, thank you for hosting DLCA in this consumer protection series and our back to school edition. As you indicated, as we know, unfortunately, due to the COVID 19, our kids are home learning virtually for the most part. So, this is a very timely edition. So, I thank you for allowing us to come to speak on this topic today.
Great, thank you. And as we were discussing prior to the show, I know that you've done some work in this area in the past, some important work, and now you've brought it into the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs. So I invite you to share with us.
Sure. As we know, and as Mr. Dishabir Schuster alluded to, the kids are in their homes, they're attending class, but while they're attending class, there can be quite a bit of distraction, not only for the child, it may be your niece, your nephew, your grandchild, it may even be your child. But one of the things that we need to be cognizant of is that in addition to them learning online, they could be privy to certain distractions that are not good for them that also would come onto your device, such as giveaways and freebies. When we get texts, sometimes they're from people we know. Sometimes, quite frankly, they're from persons who we do not know or companies who are targeting you for your personal information. So, currently, because it's time to return to school, you may be getting texts that say, "Congratulations, you've been awarded a free back to school shopping spree. You're awarded a free Nike Air Jordan." Things that would entice you to respond. Unfortunately, when you respond, many times they're asking you for your name, possibly date of birth, different vital information that would permit them to access your own personal information that you normally would not give away. So please, when it sounds too good to be true, coming in via text messages. So, for example, if you, Mr. Dishabir Schuster, receives a notice from the VI lottery that you have won $100,000 via text, do not respond. The lottery office, just like Publisher Clearinghouse Sweepstakes, we've spoken about this in the past, will send you a piece of mail registered return receipt, and or someone formally would approach you. So do not respond to those texts. Are you ready for the next one, Mr. Dishabir Schuster?
Absolutely.
So in addition to text messages about free giveaways, social media scams. I'm sure many of you may have some sort of social media platform that you use on a daily basis, whether it's Facebook, um, Instagram. You will notice that while you are browsing and looking at your own personal friends' database that they're sharing with you, pictures and what they're doing, you're also getting offers on the side of the Facebook sidebar or advertising deals, free getaways. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. So,
Mhm.
some common back to school schemes that show up on your Facebook accounts are ads promising you mobile devices, the latest model Apple phone, or gift cards from department stores. And they're telling you just click on this link and we'll provide you the information to obtain it. And or you may see something that you wanted to purchase. And when you actually go try to order it, you put in your credit card because it's a great deal. They've charged your credit card. Sometimes you forget and you never receive the item.
Mhm.
And finally, advertisements. There's always advertisements asking you to submit your information or saying that you've won something or you could claim a prize if you did something. Check the ads. Many times the ads are full of grammatical errors or misspellings. That's a clear sign that it's somebody trying to scam you. So those are three of the major things that are being used currently as we return our children to school. So please be aware of it. And Mr. Dishabir Schuster is going to allow me some airtime to share with you what's really serious and is occurring, has been occurring for some time, but you should be aware of it because while your kids are learning online next to you, it's possible that they're engaging in some unscrupulous or ill mannered texts that have invited them to lure in the dark world.
Yes. Yep. Please share. Please share with us.
Sure, can you go ahead and share the screen?
Yep. It's up for you right now.
All right. So, what I'm speaking about today, for the short, brief time that I have with you as an audience, is are you safe? The dangers of texting. What we're really speaking about is sexting. When someone is actually using their telephone and the messaging device contained with it to transmit images, words, things that are undesirable and are quite frank, ridiculous to put onto the text screen. So, what is it? Simply, it's texting to the extreme. Sexting is the new word born of the marriage between the word sex and texting, and it means sending images, as I indicated, via cell phone of people that are inappropriate, naked, or engaged in sexual acts. Listening audience, this may be yourself, this may be your children, this may be your grandchildren. People are luring them, and you need to be aware of what's happening, and you need to warn them because you don't need them to engage because then they too can become a statistic, whether a victim and or when they try to get a job in the future or apply to a certain school, they may show up on this thing called the World Wide Web. So statistically, as Mr. Dishabir Schuster indicated, many of us have mobile gadgets. 80% of teens use or have use of a cell phone on a daily basis. 90% of those teens use cell phones utilizing SMS or text messaging. And 1 in 5 teens have sent, posted nude or semi nude pictures or videos of themselves and or other teens. 20% of teen girls and 39% of teen boys sent these photos in hope of dating or hooking up with the person receiving the photos. So remember, the kids are online learning virtually, which means they're attempting to engage in relationships virtually also since they're not in school physically. 51% of the girls say they have felt pressure from a guy to send nude photos. 33% of boys admit to having looked at nude or semi nude images originally meant for someone else. Please share this with the persons with whom you are responsible for while they're engaged in virtual learning. Don't assume anything you send or post is going to remain private. Think before you send. Your messages and images will get passed around even if you think they won't. Two, there is no changing your mind in cyberspace. Anything you send or post will never truly go away. Something that seems fun and filthy and is done on a whim will never really die. Think about it. Even if you have a second thoughts and delete a racy photo, there's no telling who has already copied that photo and posted it elsewhere. Who might see your photos? And this is critical to the listening audience, the AARP community, and the persons with whom you have been entrusted to take care of. You need to share with them potential employers, college recruiters, teachers, coaches, parents, friends, enemies, strangers, quote unquote. I need to put dirty old men and women, end quote. And others may be able to find your photos. The other thing, if you're engaged in it, please remember that you have to consider the recipient's reaction. Just because the message is meant to be funny doesn't mean the person who gets it will see it that way. So it's similar to sexual harassment. It's how it's received. It's not what is the intention of the person who's engaged in the behavior. It's easy to be more provocative or outgoing online, but whatever you write, post, or send does contribute to the real life impression you're making. Four, don't give in to the pressure to do something that makes you uncomfortable, even in cyberspace. More than 40% of teens say pressure from guys is a reason girls post sexually suggestive messages and images. Five, nothing is truly anonymous. And I think this is really what is most important. People think they can hide behind the monitor, just like when I've heard from the teachers, sometimes they're looking at their students and they're thinking, hey, pay attention. And the kids forgets that they're on the monitor and they've goofed off or they've gotten up off away from their computer. Nearly 1 in 5 young people who send sexually suggestive messages and images do so to people they only know online. It is important to remember that even if someone only knows you by screen name, online profile, phone number, or email address, that they can find you if they try hard enough. So think about the consequences of taking, sending, or forwarding a sexual picture or text of someone under age 18, even if it's of you. And this is really for, like, once again, as the state chair alluded to, with virtual online learning, these are things that kids possibly could be engaging in. And we're truly trying to reach out to you to help us avoid this. Because what happens if it's you, you could get kicked off of a sports team, you could get kicked off of clubs or activities, face humiliation, or even lose educational privileges. Furthermore, the person engaged in it can then face child pornography charges, go to jail, be required to register as a sex offender. So as there is emotional damage that can come from having intimate photos of yourself distributed and archived. Remember, the World Wide Web is a repository for any and all information that's posted. So think ahead, college recruiters, future employers, future spouses and their families, and your children. I'd like to end this brief presentation by not only thanking ARP for allowing us to do this before we engage in our discussion, but also like to acknowledge that in 2011, when I was president of the Virgin Islands Bar Association and chose to educate the youth of our community about the dangers of sexting as the public service project of the year, I did it in partnership with the Department of Justice, United States Attorney's Office, and specifically former Assistant United States Attorney Denise Hines Roach, now Judge Hines Roach, who we, with the assistance of volunteers from the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Homeland Security Investigation, reached over 2,500 high school students directly and countless others with the media coverage the program received to sensitize them about the danger of sexting. Thank you, Mr. Dishabir Schuster. We can now engage in a conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Attorney Evangelista, and so very important. I remember several years ago there was, if I may use the term, a rash of high school students being exposed through text
Yes,
messaging here in the Virgin Islands, and it was really devastating to some of them. I mean, it caused great depression in many of them, great anxiety. I know of some young people who even relocated off the island because they were so embarrassed, and it's an important message. So thank you for that program that you did where you reached the 2,500 young high school students. And I hope through this programming now we can not only reach more high school students, but also their parents and their guardians to help to guide them. And so, with that in mind, how can parents and guardians raise awareness about cyber safety to mitigate the risk of abuse and exploitation on young people, their young people in particular?
sure, great question. I think it's just a matter of we need to speak about what are the hot topics. And this is a topic that has never really disappeared from the community. but I think it's more important now, more so than ever. I mean, 10 years ago, you know, maybe every other child had a cell phone with the opportunity to text or do SMS messaging. Now, with the advent of kids have to appear online for school, I'm sure there's some kids who probably appear on school online without a computer. They actually utilize their phone. So while the child is taking a break between their homework while learning virtually online, recipients of this particular message can share this episode with them, and or I'd be more than happy to once again partner with ARP and perhaps find another medium where we can do maybe a special cartoon or a role play where we can actually roll this out to the community. I don't know if that's something ARP does, but I think the more mediums that we use, sometimes you need a messenger to share the message. So through a member of the ARP community, as we become more allowable to have gatherings, we can even do a social media gathering virtually. You can get a couple of ARP members, they can get their neighborhood kids together, virtually in a virtual room setup, and we can do this.
Yeah, and we can certainly do that. That's certainly within the scope of what we do at AARP. We would call that a video campaign, right? To
Excellent.
raise awareness and educate. So we can certainly work on that together. That'll be exciting and very important work. And one thing that I thought about as you were just answering that question as to what can parents and guardians do, I think it's so important for parents and guardians to have conversations with
Yes.
their young people.
Yes.
You know, here, especially in the Caribbean culture, I mean, I heard it sometimes growing up that children are to be seen and not heard,
Right.
or parents sort of push their children away and they don't really want to listen to them. They don't want to have conversation. They talk at their children. They don't
Correct.
have conversation with their children. but but I think not only for this issue but for a variety of issues, parents really
Correct.
need to cultivate a relationship with their children, have conversation with their children, listen to their children's concerns, their fears, their hopes, their joys, their sorrows, and share that, and also share with their children their love for them, their concern for them, and ways in which they want to protect their children. But if they don't have conversation, then what? So
Correct. And you've hit on something, and if my wife is listening to me, she's gonna laugh. We need to practice listening to understand and not listening to react. And I think a lot of the confrontation that we have in our community is, go straight back to talk radio. People listen and they do that to figure out how am I going to react versus listening to understand and appreciate what the person is saying. So it should be a two-way conversation, not a one-way conversation, so that we're actually engaging to understand each other instead of trying to figure out, well, how am I going to up that person in the conversation? Almost like it's a fight, it's a challenge.
that is so true, and I like that, uh, that imagery, if you will, of listening to understand versus listening to react. Because if we really did that, if we listened to understand, could you imagine the peace we'd have in our families and the peace we'd have in the world?
Exactly. Exactly.
Everywhere. It would be totally pervasive. So that's something that we all need to be very much aware of. And, I know that even I myself as a human, sometimes I'm listening to somebody and I'm already thinking of the next thing I want to say or what I
Correct.
want to say.
Correct.
You and I have worked together, and so we
Correct.
understand that, especially about me.
Right.
Sometimes I could be a little impulsive. So I always have to try to pull myself back and try to listen to understand. So, and then, what are some of the signs that a child is being victimized by a cyber predator? What signs can parents and guardians look out for?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to put a disclaimer that I'm not a child psychology expert, but just based on information that I've learned from preparing for this particular episode, is you'll start to notice that the young individual that you are taking care of starts becoming withdrawn. They stop engaging in the active conversation, the normal activities that they used to engage in socially. Once again, they're withdrawn because they're trying to quote unquote create a private space where they can engage in these unscrupulous conversations without drawing any attention. Unfortunately, when you have an outgoing individual who now turns introverted, that is a telltale sign. So, or they start acting out. They used to do the dishes all the time. Now they refuse to do the dishes. And I know as a teenager, persons act out, but they start acting out in abnormal ways, in manners in which you are just not accustomed to.
Yeah, and again, being attentive to your child, right?
Correct.
Paying attention to what the child is saying, both verbally and through body language.
Correct.
As they always say, body language speaks much louder than words, and so parents need to be aware of that. And so, as we're seeing more and more of this popping up in the Virgin Islands and really all over the world, and you as the director of, pardon me, the commissioner of the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, what role is your department taking in protecting our young people against this type of abuse?
Sure. So, quite frankly, in my current role as the Commissioner of the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, I have not personally received any reports related to any type of cyber abuse on minors. However, what I would encourage the listening audience to do is that if in fact you find that your minor may be engaged, either the active participant or the recipient, please contact the Department of Justice or the Virgin Islands Police Department or the U.S. Attorney's Office. It is a crime, and I'm not telling you that you want to create a criminal out of someone that you love, but sometimes they just need some tough love, some nudging, so that we can actually get to the source of the danger so that we can prevent any future harm and or the creation of a monster, quite frankly. Some things just need to be nipped in the bud. So I really thank you for that question.
Yeah, and to look at it like both sides of the same coin, because while it may be practicing tough love, if your child is the perpetrator, nonetheless, at the same time, there may be somebody else
Correct.
dragging your child into being a perpetrator, right?
Correct.
So even with getting the Department of Justice involved, maybe your young person may open up and be more honest, and then they could really find out the main culprit. Get right to the source of it and try to correct that.
Correct.
So.
And at the end of the day, if we can save one child, that's one child saved. And I think that's what how we need to approach this. Because some people, look at it whether from the macroscope or the microscope. But in the end, if we can't save the world, if you save one child, you've saved one child.
Mhm, absolutely, and not only for children, but also for all adults.
Correct.
'Cause, even on my cell phone, I get all kinds of weird sexting messages from people I don't even know, like weird
Correct.
numbers or weird email addresses, not only about sexual content, but about financial rewards or a variety of things,
Correct. And
business
and
options.
more recently than not, one of the things that I've been researching is that you may be receiving messages on your by via text, by SMS or text messaging. But what persons are doing now is they're using your email to get to your text. So they don't necessarily have your phone number. And it's something that the cell phone companies are working through. So, audience, beware that simply because you're getting a text message that is abnormal, whether it's a sex message or a message for financial gain. It's not that they have your cell phone number, so please don't respond. They've taken your email, which is a lot more easier to obtain, especially if you're working. They can take your work email and it ties right back into a cell phone that may be connected somehow directly or indirectly. So I don't want you to think that they have your phone number, but if you respond to it, then they're going to get your cell number. So the best thing to do is go through that message and for each number, go to information and block the caller. It takes a while, but eventually you get rid of them.
Wow, so that's really
Yeah.
interesting. I never knew
I had to do
how
some
they.
research because I was getting these crazy messages. I'm like, but how is this number getting out? And it's my work number that's tied to my work email. And when I read about it, I said, oh, so you literally have to go to the list of text message numbers and just block, block, block. And eventually it's going to stop. It'll pick up again eventually, but at least you can delete those particular texts.
These people really put a lot of time and energy
They do.
into all of this, huh? And all kinds of
They
research.
do. And I think at the end of the day, it's just like when we're saying if we can save one child, if they can scam one person per day, I think that's that's their gain because whatever they do with that person's personal information, they cause havoc for that person for so many years. But now they probably, getting to a bank account or a credit card or something. I don't know. It's an unscrupulous place. What can I say?
So if they're able, maybe you don't know the answer to this question yet, maybe you do, but if they're able to tunnel through to our cell number through our email account, are they also able then to get our email password to get into our email that way? Are they able to access that too?
Probably not. That's why they use the email address for you to receive something. Because if they get your email password, then they can go into the email.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm not the techie person. You are.
I wish I knew all of these things. I'd have all of the answers. We could protect everybody, but it's really amazing. And since the onset of the pandemic, it seems like it has just increased exponentially.
Right. And I think the scammers, the thieves, they're very aware that we are tied in more so than ever before. Some people have two, three gadgets. You have the iPad, you have your computer, you may have two work cell phones. I mean, so just think the more gadgets you have, the more opportunity they have to try to get you on one of these mediums. And then if you're like some persons, they tie all their gadgets together via certain services. So now if you get one, you get all.
Right.
And technology, it's like everything else. Everything has its pros and cons, and we just have to be safe with how we utilize the gadgets at our disposal. And at the end of the day, while the children are learning virtually, we're asking and pleading to the persons listening to please just pay attention to them. There's nothing wrong with you, checking their screen, seeing what's going on, going through their email quickly just to see what's going on, because it's possible that you have some creepy crawler trying to get into that person's virtual world.
Now, you mentioned earlier in our conversation that if you suspect your child being a victim or a perpetrator of sexting and such activity, that there are certain agencies that you can contact to help. Can you repeat those again? One was the Department of Justice, and then
The Virgin Islands Department of Justice, the United States Attorney's Office, or the Virgin Islands Police Department. Law enforcement are the people who will doing the investigation, quite
okay,
frankly.
yes, okay, very important. And then if it's anything to do with financial gain or business exploitation, then they can come to your department.
Yes, sir. Then they can contact the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, and they can contact our scam line, which is 340-727 SCAM, which is 7226. So 340-727-7226.
Great. And so thank you, um, listening audience. You've been listening to our back to school, um, i- a back to school broadcast regarding scams, especially sexting. And we've been speaking with attorney Richard Evangelista, the commissioner of the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs. Attorney Evangelista, thank you for being with us today on our show.
Thank you very much for hosting me. And I just like to say, teachers, educators, paraprofessionals, support staff, students, wishing you a wonderful school year. I know it's not what we wanted, but please make the best of it. Educate, educate, educate. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Take care.